Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, staring at the massive alien ship that had just appeared on their screens. The ship was enormous, at least 10 times larger than their own vessel. Its surface was smooth and dark, covered in strange patterns that seemed to glow with a soft blue light. "Captain, we're getting a signal," said Lisa Rodriguez, the ship's communications officer. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and nervous eyes. "It's coming through on multiple frequencies." Jake nodded. "Put it through." Main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at something that definitely was not human.
Ow, baby.
The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked almost metallic. Its eyes were large and completely black, and it had no visible nose or mouth. When it spoke, the voice came from speakers around the bridge. "I am High Commander Vextal of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said. Its voice was cold and mechanical. "You will identify yourselves." Jake stepped forward. He was 42 years. Old, with brown hair starting to turn gray, and the kind of steady voice that came from 20 years in space. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison, of the Earth vessel USS Liberty. We come in peace." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "Earth. Yes. We have heard of your small world. You are far from home, Captain Morrison. We're explorers," Jake said. "We're looking for new worlds. New life. We mean no harm to anyone." "Of course you mean no harm," Vextal said. "Could not harm us even if you tried. Your technology is primitive. Your weapons are toys." Pete Johnson, the ship's engineer, was checking the sensor readings. He was a big man with thick hands and a worried expression. "Captain," he whispered, "their ship is reading power levels I've never seen before. Whatever they're using for energy, it's way beyond anything we have." Amy Clark, the ship's scientist, was studying the alien on the screen. She was small and quiet, with blonde hair tied back in a ponytail. She specialized in studying new life forms, but she had never seen anything like this. "Captain, look at their ship's design. It's not just big, it's built with technology we don't understand. The materials alone must be centuries ahead of ours." Vextel seemed to be listening to something they could not hear. Then he spoke again. "Captain Morrison, you will come aboard our vessel. You will bring 3 of your crew. You will not bring weapons." "And if we refuse?" Jake asked. The alien's large black eyes seemed to focus on him. "Then we will take you anyway." Jake looked around the bridge. His crew was small but experienced. Lisa had worked communications for 10 years. Pete knew every bolt and wire on the ship. Amy was one of the best scientists Earth had ever sent into space. They were good people, and they trusted him to make the right choice. "Well, come," Jake said. An hour later, Jake found himself in a small shuttle with Lisa, Pete, and Amy, flying toward the alien ship. The Zephyrian vessel was even more impressive up close. It was smooth as glass, with no visible seams or joints. It looked like it had been grown rather than built. "They even get inside," Pete muttered, staring at the perfect surface. As if hearing him, a section of the ship's hull simply disappeared, revealing a docking bay inside. The shuttle was pulled in by some kind of invisible force, and they landed without Jake having to touch the controls. The docking bay was huge and empty except for their small shuttle. The walls glowed with the same blue light they had seen on the outside. As they climbed out of the shuttle, figures appeared from nowhere. They were Zephyrians, tall and thin like their commander, but these ones wore what looked like armor made of the same glowing material as their ship. "Follow," one of them said, though Jake could not see it move its mouth. They walked through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The walls were covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. Air was breathable, but tasted strange, like metal and electricity. Amy kept trying to examine everything they passed, but the aliens moved too quickly for her to get a good look at anything. Finally, they reached a large room with a high ceiling. High Commander Vextal was waiting for them, standing on a raised platform. He was even taller than he had appeared on the screen, at least 8 feet high. Around the room stood dozens of other Zephyrians, all watching the humans with their large black eyes. "Welcome to my ship," Vextal said. "You are the first humans to see the inside of a Zephyrian vessel. You should feel honored."
"We do, Jake,"
said carefully. "Your technology is amazing. We would like to learn about your people." "Learn." Vextal made that laughing sound again. "You think we are here to teach you? You are wrong, Captain Morrison. We are here to inform you. The High Commander gestured, and the air above them filled with images. Jake and his crew saw star systems, planets, and space battles. They saw worlds burning and cities falling. They saw ships like the one they were standing in, destroying everything in their path. The Zephyrian Empire has ruled this part of the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Vexthal said, "We have conquered 47 different species. Some fought us, some tried to hide, some begged for mercy. All of them failed." Images changed, showing creatures that might once have been proud and intelligent, now working in what looked like mines and factories. They were thin and broken, their eyes empty of hope. "Your species will be the 48th Vexthal continued. You will serve the Empire. Your worlds will provide resources. Your people will work where we direct them. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is simply what will happen." Lisa stepped forward, her face pale but determined. "You can't just take over our worlds. Earth has billions of people. We have the right to be free." "Rights?" Vexel seemed amused. "You speak of rights? You are children playing with fire, trying to talk to adults about rights. Look around you. Look at our technology. Look at our power. What rights do you think you have?" Pete clenched his fists. "Maybe our technology isn't as advanced as yours. But we're not going to just give up. Humans don't surrender that easily." "No," Vexthal agreed. "Most species do not surrender easily. They fight, they resist, they die. Then the survivors surrender. It always ends the same way." The High Commander walked down from his platform, moving with smooth, liquid grace. He stopped directly in front of Jake, looking down at the human captain with those black, emotionless eyes. I will demonstrate," he said, without warning. Every piece of equipment on Jake's belt stopped working. His communicator died. His emergency beacon went silent. Even his watch stopped ticking. Lisa gasped as her portable scanner shut down completely. Pete's tools became useless pieces of metal. "Your technology is nothing to us," Vexthal said. "We can disable it with a thought. We can destroy your ships. Before you can fire a single shot, you can turn your own weapons against you. You have nothing that can threaten us." Amy found her voice. "What do you want from us?" "Want?" Vexthal repeated. "We want nothing from you. We simply inform you of what will be. Return to your ship. Return to your world. Tell your leaders that they have 30 of your days to surrender completely. If they refuse, we will take your world by force. If they cooperate, your people will be treated well as servants of the Empire." "And if we fight?" Jake asked. "The aliens?" Expression did not change, but somehow he seemed to smile. "Then you will learn what the other 47 species learned. Fighting the Zephyrian Empire is not war. It is suicide." The humans were escorted back to their shuttle in silence. As they flew back to the USS Liberty, nobody spoke. They were all thinking the same thing. Earth had no weapons that could touch the Zephyrian ship. They had no shields that could stop Zephyrian weapons, and no technology that could not be turned off with a simple thought. As the USS Liberty prepared to jump back to Earth, Jake stood on the bridge one more time, looking at the alien vessel. It had not moved, simply waited, patient and confident, like a cat watching a mouse. "Set course for Earth," Jake said quietly. "Maximum speed." "Yes, sir," Lisa replied, her voice shaking slightly as they jumped into hyperspace. Jake wondered what he was going to tell Earth's leaders. How do you explain to billions of people that their entire civilization was about to become slaves to aliens they could not fight, could not resist, and could not escape? Behind them, the Zephyrian ship disappeared into the darkness, but Jake knew it would not be gone for long. In 30 days, it would return. And when it did, it would not be alone. The emergency meeting room at Earth Defense Command was packed with the most important military leaders from every nation. Admiral Karen White sat at the head of the long table, her gray hair pulled back tightly and her face showing the stress of the past 3 days. She had been in the military for 30 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the front of the room, finishing his report about the encounter with the Zephyrians. The room was completely silent as he described how easily the aliens had disabled all their equipment. When he finished, Nobody spoke for a long moment. "So let me understand this," said General Robert Hayes, a tall man with a deep voice. "These aliens can turn off our weapons just by thinking about it." "Yes, sir," Jake replied. "Everything electronic just stopped working. Communications, sensors, even simple devices like watches. And their ships are 10 times the size of our biggest vessels." "At least 10 times, sir. Maybe more." Admiral White rubbed her temples. She had been hoping that Jake's initial report was somehow wrong, that maybe the situation was not as bad as it seemed. But hearing it again in person made it clear that Earth was facing something impossible. "What about our nuclear weapons?" asked Colonel Martha Davis. "Surely they cannot stop everything." Dr. Helen Parker, Earth's top weapons scientist, shook her head. "If they can disable electronic systems that easily, they can probably stop our missiles before they even launch. And even if a few got through, nuclear weapons need electronic guidance systems to hit their targets." "So what you are telling me," Admiral White said slowly, "is that we have 27 days left before the most powerful military force in the galaxy comes to enslave our entire planet. And we have no way to fight them." The room fell silent again. Everyone was thinking the same thing, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. Earth was going to lose. Badly. That was when Dr. Sam Carter spoke up from the back of the room. He was a thin man, with messy brown hair and thick glasses, and most people in the room had never heard of him before today. "Actually, Admiral, I think we might have a chance." Everyone turned to look at him. General Hayes frowned. "And you are?" "Dr. Sam Carter. I work in the Advanced Research Division. I have been studying the technology fragments that Captain Morrison brought back from the alien ship." Admiral White leaned forward. "What did you find?" Sam stood up, looking nervous but determined. "Well, the aliens are definitely more advanced than us. Their technology is amazing. But I think they have a weakness." "What kind of weakness?" "Colonel," Davis asked. "They think like us," Sam said. "I mean, they think like military people. They have weapons designed to fight other weapons. They have shields designed to stop other shields. Their whole way of thinking is based on fighting enemies who use technology like theirs." General Hayes looked confused. "I do not understand." Sam walked to the front of the room. "Let me give you an example. Their ship's sensors are incredibly advanced. They can detect our most secret military technology from millions of miles away. But I do not think they are looking for things that are not military technology." "What do you mean?" Admiral White asked. "I mean, what if we did not use military technology to fight them? What if we used something else?" The room was quiet as everyone tried to understand what Sam was suggesting. "Like what?" Jake asked. Sam smiled for the first time since entering the room. "Like anything. Everything. The aliens expect us to fight them with spaceships and missiles and energy weapons. But what if we fought them with kitchen knives and garden tools and car parts?" Colonel Davis laughed, but not in a mean way. "Dr. Carter, you cannot fight a space battle with kitchen knives." "Why not?" Sam asked seriously. "I mean, obviously not directly. But what if we could turn kitchen knives into something that could damage their ships? What if we could take ordinary things and make them into weapons they would never expect?" Admiral White was starting to understand. "You were talking about improvised weapons?" "Exactly," Sam said, getting excited now. "The aliens have spent thousands of years learning how to fight against advanced technology, but they have never fought against truly creative improvisation. They do not know how to defend against weapons that should not be weapons." Dr. Parker spoke up. "But how would that even work? I mean, their technology is so far ahead of ours." Sam pulled out a small device that looked like a broken piece of metal. "This is a fragment from their ship's hull. I have been testing it for 3 days. It is incredibly strong, almost impossible to damage with our normal tools. But watch this." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of what looked like ordinary iron filings, the kind used in science class experiments. He sprinkled them on the alien metal fragment. Immediately, the fragment began to glow and make a high-pitched whining sound. "Simple iron particles cause some kind of interference with their hull material," Sam explained. "It does not damage it, but it disrupts whatever energy systems are running through it. Now imagine if we could get iron filings onto their ship in large quantities. The room was suddenly very interested. General Hayes leaned forward. How large quantities? Well, that depends on how creative we want to get, Sam said. A few pounds of iron filings would not do much. But what if we loaded cargo containers full of iron filings and launched them at their ships? What if we put iron filings in our missiles, even if the missiles themselves get disabled? What if we filled space around Earth with clouds of iron particles? Colonel Davis was taking notes now. What else have you discovered? Aluminum foil, Sam said. The kind you use in your kitchen. It interferes with their communication systems. I tested it on the communication device that Captain Morrison brought back. A simple sheet of aluminum foil wrapped around it made it completely useless. Could disrupt their communications? Admiral White asked. Better than that, Sam said. We could confuse them. Imagine thousands of pieces of aluminum foil floating in space, each one causing false readings on their sensors. They would not know which signals were real and which were just interference. Jake was beginning to smile. What about their ability to shut down our electronics? That is the interesting part, Sam said. They seem to target specific types of technology, military electronics, communication devices, computer systems, but they do not seem to affect simpler devices. Mechanical watches still work. Wind-up radios still function. Even some older electronic devices that do not use modern computer chips seem to be immune. Dr. Parker was getting excited now. So, if we built weapons using older technology, simpler technology, they might not be able to shut them down, Sam finished. Or at least they might not think to shut them down. Remember, they are expecting us to use our most advanced weapons. They might not even notice if we attack them with something that looks like junk. Admiral White stood up. Dr. Carter, I want you to put together a team. I want you to test every idea you have. I want you to think of every possible way to turn ordinary objects into weapons. And I want you to do it in the next 20 days. Yes, ma'am, Sam said. But I am going to need help. A lot of help. What kind of help? Engineers, mechanics, farmers, cooks, teachers, artists, children. Anyone who knows how to make things work, Sam said. The more different kinds of people we have thinking about this, the more ideas we will get. Military people think like military people, but we need to think like everyone. Colonel Davis looked skeptical. You want to put children on our weapons development team? Why not? Sam asked. Children are incredibly creative. They see possibilities that adults miss. They are not limited by thinking about what should work and what should not work. They just try things to see what happens. Admiral White made her decision. Do it. Send out a worldwide call for volunteers. Anyone who wants to help defend Earth by thinking of new ways to use old things. Set up workshops in every major city. Give people access to whatever materials they need. What should we tell them they are working on? General Hayes asked. Sam grinned. Tell them they are trying to figure out how to turn everything they can. Think of into a weapon. Tell them that in the next 3 weeks, we need to prove that in human hands, anything becomes a weapon of war. Over the next week, something amazing began to happen all over Earth. In workshops and garages, schools and community centers, people began gathering to work on the most unusual military project in human history. They brought kitchen utensils, and garden tools, sports equipment, and children's toys, car parts and computer components. In Detroit, a group of auto mechanics figured out how to turn car engines into electromagnetic pulse generators. In Tokyo, a team of electronics students discovered that old television parts could be combined to create powerful radio transmitters. In rural Montana, farmers learned how to modify crop dusting equipment to spread clouds of metal particles. Beth Taylor, Navy engineer working with Sam's team, coordinated the efforts from a command center that looked more like a science fair than a military base. Tables were covered with everything from kitchen blenders to bicycle parts, all being tested and modified by teams of volunteers. Dr. Carter, she said one afternoon, we are getting reports from all over the world. People are finding ways to weaponize things I never would have thought of. Someone in Brazil figured out how to turn coconuts into sensor jammers. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his new ship. looking at the screens showing three Zephyrian scout vessels approaching Earth's outer defenses. His old ship, the USS Liberty, was back on Earth being studied by scientists. His new command was called the Fighting Spirit, and it looked nothing like a military vessel. The Fighting Spirit had started life as a cargo hauler, one of the big ships that carried supplies between Earth and the mining colonies. Now it was covered in what looked like junk. Shipping containers were welded to its hull in strange patterns. Long metal arms stuck out in all directions. Pieces of machinery that belonged in factories were bolted onto the outside of the ship. "Captain, the alien ships are getting closer," said Danny Walsh, the ship's new weapons officer. Danny was young, maybe 23, with red hair and the kind of nervous energy that came from knowing he was about to test weapons that had never been used before. Jake nodded. "How are our special cargo containers?" Nicole Green, the systems specialist, checked her instruments. Nicole was small and quiet, but she knew more about turning ordinary things into weapons than anyone else on the N ship. "All containers are loaded and ready, sir. We have everything from ball bearings to kitchen mixers in there." "Kitchen mixers?" asked Lisa Rodriguez, who had volunteered to serve on Jake's new crew. "I still do not understand how kitchen mixers become weapons." Nicole smiled. "Wait and see." The Fighting Spirit looked helpless as it drifted toward the alien scouts. Its engines were barely running, and it was sending out distress signals on all frequencies. To the Zephyrians, it probably looked like a damaged cargo ship trying to escape. High Commander Vexthal was not with the scout ships, but as second in command. War Leader Kethfer was leading the patrol. Kethfer had conquered 12 worlds for the Zephyrian Empire, and he had never met a species that could surprise him. "War Leader," one of his officers reported, "we are detecting a single human vessel. It appears to be damaged." Kethfer looked at the human ship on his screen. It was ugly and crude, covered in what looked like scrap metal. "Scan it for weapons." "No energy weapons detected, sir. No missile systems. No shields. It appears to be carrying only cargo containers." "Destroy it," Kethfer ordered. "We do not have time to waste on damaged freight haulers." But before the Zephyrian ships could fire, something unexpected happened. The cargo containers on the Fighting Spirit began opening, not like doors, but like flowers blooming. Each container was packed with thousands of small objects. And these objects began spreading out into space in carefully planned patterns.
What?
"Is that?" Kethfer demanded. His science officer studied the readings. "It appears to be debris, sir. Metal fragments, small objects, various materials. Nothing that registers as dangerous." Kethfer relaxed. Typical human desperation. "Are dumping their cargo to try to distract us." But Danny Walsh was not dumping cargo randomly. He was following a plan that had been developed by the brightest minds on Earth, including a 12-year-old girl named Casey Chen, who had figured out how to turn toy electronics into communication jammers. "Container 1 deployed," Danny reported. "Ball bearings and iron filings are spreading in Formation Alpha." "Container 2 deployed," Nicole added. "Kitchen appliances and aluminum foil Formation Beta?" "Container 3 deployed," said Pete Johnson, who had also joined Jake's crew. "Modified electronic devices, Formation Gamma." The Zephyrian ships flew straight into the cloud of debris, not worried about small pieces of metal hitting their powerful shields, but within seconds, their instruments began acting strangely. "War Leader," the science officer called out, "we are getting interference on all sensor channels." "From what?" "I do not know, sir. The debris appears to be causing some kind of electromagnetic disruption." Kethfer was annoyed, but not worried. Fire on the human ship. And this foolishness. Zephyrian energy weapons charged up and fired, but something was wrong. The beams of deadly energy, which should have destroyed the Fighting Spirit instantly, flickered and wavered as they passed through the cloud of metal particles. Some of the energy was absorbed, some was scattered, and some bounced back toward the alien ships. "Possible," Kethfer muttered. "Dot on the Fighting Spirit." Jake was watching his plan work exactly as Dr. Sam Carter had predicted. Now, Danny hit them with everything we have. Danny activated the ship's real weapons. They were not energy beams or guided missiles. They were industrial tools that had been turned into something else entirely. mining lasers that had been modified to fire in, patterns that the aliens had never seen before, construction equipment that could launch pieces of metal at incredible speeds. Even the kitchen mixers, which had been turned into devices that could scramble electronic signals. The Zephyrian shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, had no idea how to handle attacks that were not conventional at all. The mining laser was not powerful enough to damage their hull directly, but it was confusing their navigation systems. The metal projectiles were not fast enough to penetrate their armor, but they were carrying clouds of iron particles that stuck to the alien ships and caused even more interference. "War Leader, our systems are failing," reported the communications officer. "We cannot maintain contact with the other ships." "What is happening?" Kethver demanded. His science officer was staring at readings that made no sense. "The humans appear to be attacking us with ... industrial equipment, sir, and household items, and children's toys. That is ridiculous." "Yes, sir, but it is working." Jake's ship was not fighting like a military vessel. It was fighting like a construction site that had declared war. Every piece of equipment on board had been modified to cause problems for the alien ships. Even the ship's coffee maker had been turned into a device that could jam Zephyrian communications. The first alien scout ship tried to retreat, but it flew into another cloud of debris that Danny had launched from a different container. This cloud contained thousands of pieces of aluminum foil, each one reflecting the ship's own sensor beams back at it. The ship's computer systems became completely confused, unable to tell what was real and what was just reflection. The second alien ship tried to ram the fighting Spirit, but Nicole activated what she called the fishing net protocol. Long cables shot out from the human ship, cables that had originally been designed to tow damaged vessels. But now, they were covered in materials that interfered with Zephyrian technology. When the cables wrapped around the alien ship, its engines began to malfunction. The third alien ship managed to get close enough to try boarding the fighting Spirit, but it discovered that the humans had prepared for that too. The ship's corridors were filled with booby traps made from smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, and automatic door systems. The alien boarding party found themselves lost in a maze of obstacles that had been designed by people who knew how to make everyday objects do unexpected things. Within an hour, all three Zephyrian scout ships were disabled. They were not destroyed, but they could not fight, could not communicate, and could not escape. They drifted in space, surrounded by clouds of Earth's most creative junk. War Leader Kethver sat in his command chair, staring at readings that told him his advanced warships had been defeated by a cargo hauler armed with kitchen appliances. It was impossible, but it had happened. "War Leader," his communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving a message from the human ship. Put it through." Jake Morrison appeared on the screen, looking calm and confident. "War Leader Kethver, this is Captain Morrison. Your ships are disabled but not destroyed. Your crews are alive. I am offering you a chance to surrender." Kethver's black eyes were wide with disbelief. "How did you defeat us with such primitive weapons?" Jake smiled. "That is the thing about humans, War Leader. We do not have primitive weapons. We have primitive materials that we turn into whatever kind of weapons we need. Today, we needed weapons that could confuse your ships and disable your systems, so that is what we built." "This is not possible," Kethver said. "Our technology is superior in every way." "Your technology is very impressive," Jake agreed. "But it is designed to fight other advanced technology. It was not designed to fight against human creativity, and that is your weakness." The news of the victory spread across Earth in minutes. Impossible had happened. Human ships, armed with improvised weapons made from everyday objects, had defeated advanced alien warships. It was the first time in the war that humans had won a battle, and it would not be the last. Dr. Sam Carter, watching the battle from Earth's command center, turned to Admiral White with a big smile on his face. "Admiral, I think we just proved something very important." "What is that, Dr. Carter?" "We proved that there is no such thing as junk when humans get creative enough." High Commander Vextel stood in the center of his massive command ship, staring at the holographic display showing Earth's solar system. Around him, 500 Zephyrian warships prepared for what should have been the easiest conquest in the Empire's long history. The reports from war leader Kethfer had changed everything. "Explain to me again," Vextel said to his science advisor. "How 3 of our scout ships were defeated by kitchen appliances?" The science advisor, a thin Zephyrian named Mordix, looked uncomfortable. "High Commander, the humans appear to have developed weapons that our sensors do not recognize as weapons. They use simple materials in ways we have never encountered." "Simple materials," Vextel repeated. "You mean garbage?" "Not exactly garbage, sir. More like creative applications of everyday objects. Our shields and defensive systems are designed to counter energy weapons in conventional projectiles. But the humans are using iron particles, aluminum sheets, and modified industrial equipment in ways that interfere with our technology." Vextel was angry, but he was also curious. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever surprised the Zephyrian Empire. "Show me their defenses," as the holographic display zoomed in on Earth's solar system. What Vextel saw made no sense at first, as the space around Earth was filled with objects that did not look like military installations. There were old space stations that had been modified with strange attachments, asteroid mining platforms covered in equipment that belonged in factories, even what looked like garbage collection ships floating in orbital patterns. "What am I looking at?" Vexel demanded. "According to our intelligence, the humans have turned their entire solar system into a weapons platform," Mordix explained. "But not using traditional weapons. They have weaponized their civilian infrastructure." Admiral Karen White was coordinating Earth's defense from inside a converted asteroid mining station called Fortress Rock. The station had originally been built to process metals from space rocks, but now it was the command center for the most unusual military operation in human history. "Status report," Admiral White called out. Alex Turner, former garbage collection technician, who now commanded a fleet of automated drones, looked up from his control panel. "Admiral, all cleanup drones are in position. We have 3,000 units ready to swarm any alien ship that gets close to Earth." The drones had once collected space junk and debris from Earth's orbit. Now they carried improvised explosive devices made from household chemicals and were programmed to attach themselves to alien ships like electronic parasites. Roy Phillips, mechanical engineer who had spent the last month turning construction equipment into orbital weapons, reported next. "All construction platforms are armed and ready, with mining drills converted to kinetic weapons, cement mixers turned into projectile launchers, crane systems that can grab and throw asteroids." Maria Santos, an agricultural scientist, spoke from her station. "Biological warfare systems are prepared. We have modified crop dusting satellites to spread interference compounds throughout the solar system. Also, our genetically modified wheat has been processed into an aerosol that disrupts Zephyrian life support systems." Admiral White nodded. 3 weeks ago, these people had been ordinary civilians with ordinary jobs. Now they were commanding the most creative military force Earth had ever assembled. "What about Dr. Carter's special project?" she asked. Dr. Rachel Kim, an atmospheric specialist, smiled. "The weather control system is ready. We can turn Earth's entire atmosphere into a weapon using modified satellites and agricultural spray systems. When Dr. Carter gives the signal, we can create electromagnetic storms and chemical attacks that will cover half the solar system." The Zephyrian fleet approached Earth with overwhelming confidence. 500 ships, each one capable of destroying a planet, moving in perfect formation. High Commander Vextel expected the humans to meet them with their largest warships in a traditional space battle that would last maybe an hour. Instead, the first thing the Zephyrian fleet encountered was a cloud of what looked like space garbage. "Sensors detect multiple small objects," reported the fleet's navigation officer. "They appear to be cleaning devices?" Vextel frowned. "Cleaning devices? Yes, sir. Automated maintenance drones, waste collection units, orbital repair systems. Nothing that registers as military hardware. Ignore them," Vextel ordered. "Continue toward the planet." But Alex Turner's garbage drones were not as harmless as they looked. As the alien fleet passed through the cloud of maintenance robots, Thousands of small devices attached themselves to the Zephyrian ships. They looked like ordinary cleaning equipment, so the alien sensors ignored them completely. The drones waited until they were firmly attached, then began their real work. Some released clouds of iron particles that interfered with ship systems. Others started transmitting signals that jammed alien communications. A few carried explosive devices made from kitchen ingredients that had been mixed by children working in school chemistry labs. High Commander, the communications officer, called out, "We are losing contact with ships throughout the fleet." "How many ships?" "All of them, sir. Something is interfering with our communication systems." Vextel was starting to feel nervous. "What about our weapons? Can we still fire?" "Yes, sir, but our targeting systems are becoming unreliable." Was when the second wave of human defenses activated. Roy Phillips had spent weeks figuring out how to turn asteroid mining equipment into weapons. Now, from stations hidden throughout the solar system, modified mining drills began launching projectiles at incredible speeds. The projectiles were not sophisticated missiles. They were chunks of metal and rock, some as small as pebbles, others as large as cars, but they were traveling fast enough to damage even Zephyrian shields. And there were thousands of them coming from every direction. "Evasive maneuvers," Vextal commanded. The Zephyrian ships tried to avoid the projectile storm, but their navigation systems were being disrupted by the cleaning drones. Ships that had flown in perfect formation for thousands of years suddenly found themselves bumping into each other and flying in circles. Then Maria Santos activated the agricultural attack system. Satellites that had once been used to spray fertilizer on crops began releasing clouds of modified biological agents throughout space. The compounds were harmless to humans, but caused major problems for Zephyrian technology and life support systems. "High Commander," the medical officer reported, "the air filtration systems are malfunctioning. We are detecting unknown biological compounds in the ship's atmosphere." "Are they dangerous?" "Not immediately, sir, but they are making it difficult to breathe. Also, they seem to be affecting our computer systems." Vexel could not believe what was happening. His mighty fleet was being attacked by garbage trucks, construction equipment, and farm chemicals. It was like being defeated by a maintenance crew. But the worst was still coming. Dr. Sam Carter and AID, Dr. Rachel Kim, had spent 3 weeks figuring out how to weaponize Earth's entire atmosphere. Now, using weather satellites and atmospheric processing stations, they began the largest improvised attack in human history. The plan was simple, but incredible. By releasing certain chemicals into Earth's upper atmosphere and using modified weather control satellites, they could create artificial electromagnetic storms that would spread throughout the solar system. The storms would not hurt humans on Earth, but they would cause massive problems for any alien ships in the area. "Activate Atmospheric Warfare Protocol," Admiral White commanded. Dr. Kim pressed a series of buttons that had once controlled Earth's weather prediction systems. Atmospheric weaponization beginning now. Within minutes, Earth's sky began to glow with unnatural colors. The planet's magnetic field started pulsing in patterns that had never occurred naturally. Electromagnetic energy began radiating outward. From Earth in waves that carried clouds of metallic particles and chemical compounds, the Zephyrian fleet found itself caught in the middle of an artificial storm that made their most advanced technology useless. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were now flying blind, their sensors overwhelmed by interference that seemed to come from the planet itself. "High Commander," the science officer called out desperately, "the humans have turned their entire world into a weapon. The planet is attacking us." Vexel stared at the displays showing his fleet in chaos. Half his ships were lost in electromagnetic storms. The other half were being swarmed by modified maintenance drones and pelted with improvised projectiles. His communications were jammed by devices that looked like children's toys. His life support systems were being poisoned by what smelled like farm chemicals. "This is impossible," he whispered. "We are the most advanced military force in the galaxy. How are we being defeated by a planet full of maintenance workers and farmers?" Captain Jake Morrison's voice came through the crackling communications system. "High Commander Vexel, this is Captain Morrison. Your fleet is surrounded and disabled. I am offering you one last chance to surrender. Surrender. Vextel could barely speak. 2 garbage collectors and crop dusters. 2 humans, Jake corrected. And the thing about humans is that we can turn anything into a weapon if we have to. Today we had to turn our entire solar system into a weapon. High Commander Vextel's massive command ship was still functional, but barely. Around him, the bridge was filled with smoke and sparks from damaged systems. His mighty fleet of 500 ships was scattered across Earth's solar system, most of them disabled by attacks that his military training had never prepared him for. Status of the fleet, Vexel demanded, his voice showing strain for the first time in centuries. His communications officer worked frantically at controls that kept shorting out. Sir, we have lost contact with over 300 ships. Remaining vessels report major system failures. Many crews are requesting permission to retreat. Retreat? Blackstow's black eyes flashed with anger. The Zephyrian Empire has never retreated from primitives armed with household items. But even as he spoke, more reports came in. Ships were being swarmed by modified cleaning robots. Navigation systems were failing due to clouds of kitchen aluminum foil. Weapon systems were being jammed by signals that seemed to come from children's electronic toys. Dr. Sam Carter stood in Earth's command center, watching the battle displays with amazement. His idea to weaponize everyday objects had worked beyond his wildest dreams, but he knew the fight was not over yet. Admiral White, he said, Vextel's command ship is still operational. He will not give up easily. Admiral White nodded. Do you recommend? We need to show him something he has never seen before, Sam replied. Something that will prove once and for all that human creativity has no limits. That something was approaching Earth orbit at that very moment. It was a converted cruise ship called the Improvised Hope, commanded by Captain Janet Stone. Janet had been a cruise ship captain for 15 years before the war started. Now she was in charge of the most unusual warship in human history. The Improvised Hope looked nothing like a military vessel. It still had swimming pools and restaurants, gift shops, and entertainment decks. But every single item on the ship had been converted into some kind of weapon or defense system. Captain Stone, came Admiral White's voice over the radio, the alien command ship is heading your way. Are you ready? Janet smiled as she looked around her bridge, which was staffed by former cruise ship employees who had become expert improvised warriors. Admiral, we have been ready since we figured out how to turn deck chairs into missile launchers. Ben Martinez, the ship's former security chief, was now the weapons coordinator. Captain, all systems are ready. We have 3,000 passengers aboard, and every one of them is armed with something that used to be a household item. Carlos Rivera, who had been the ship's head chef, was now in charge of what they called kitchen warfare. All cooking equipment has been weaponized, he reported. We can attack with everything from modified blenders to explosive soufflé mix. The Zephyrian command ship detected the approaching cruise liner and immediately targeted it with the most powerful weapons remaining in the fleet. Massive energy beams shot toward the Improvised Hope. Beams that should have destroyed the converted passenger ship instantly. But Janet, Stone's crew had spent weeks preparing for this moment. As the energy beams approached, hundreds of reflective surfaces deployed from the ship's hull. These were not military-grade deflector shields. They were bathroom mirrors, kitchen stainless steel, and polished serving trays that had been arranged in patterns designed by an art teacher from Kansas. The alien energy beams hit the improvised reflectors and scattered in every direction. Some of the energy bounced harmlessly into space, some reflected back toward the Zephyrian ships, and some was captured by devices that had once been microwave ovens and converted into power for the cruise ship's own weapons. It's possible, Vextel muttered as he watched his most powerful weapons being defeated by what looked like a floating hotel. Sir, his weapons officer reported, our energy beams are being reflected by ... mirrors, kitchen equipment. I cannot identify most of these. Materials? Fire everything, Vexel ordered. Destroy that ship. But the Improvised Hope was not just defending itself. It was attacking back in ways that no military strategist had ever imagined. Carlos Rivera activated the kitchen assault protocol, and suddenly the space around the Zephyrian command ship was filled with projectiles that had once been cooking supplies. Modified pressure cookers launched clouds of flour that interfered with alien sensors. Converted ice cream makers fired frozen projectiles that stuck to ship hulls and then exploded. Even the ship's coffee machines had been turned into devices that could scramble electronic systems by broadcasting signals on the same frequencies. Used by Earth's morning radio shows, the Zephyrian command ship tried to ram the cruise liner, thinking that physical impact would succeed where energy weapons had failed. But Janet Stone had prepared for that too. The improvised Hope deployed what Ben Martinez called the Entertainment Defense System. Suddenly, the space between the two ships was filled with objects that had once provided fun for cruise passengers. Bowling balls launched from modified deck games created a kinetic barrier. Balloon animals filled with explosive gases drifted toward the alien ship like colorful mines. Even the ship's karaoke machines had been converted into sonic weapons that broadcast frequencies designed to confuse Zephyrian nervous systems. "What is that noise?" Vexel demanded, as strange sounds filled his bridge. "It appears to be singing, sir," his communications officer replied. "Human singing. Very bad human singing." But the singing was more than just noise. Earth's musicians had discovered that certain combinations of musical notes, when amplified properly, could interfere with Zephyrian brain functions. The karaoke attack was actually a sophisticated psychological warfare operation disguised as entertainment. As the battle continued, more converted civilian ships arrived to help the improvised Hope. There was a former school bus that had been turned into a mobile weapon platform by a group of teachers and students. A retired fire truck that could spray chemical compounds instead of water. Even a converted ice cream truck that played nursery rhymes while launching projectiles made from playground equipment. Vexthal watched in growing horror as his technologically superior command ship was slowly overwhelmed by attacks that made no military sense. His shields could stop nuclear weapons, but they could not handle being pelted with bowling balls and kitchen utensils. His sensors could detect the most advanced stealth technology, but they could not track threats that looked like children's toys and household appliances. "High Commander," his science officer called out, "hull breach in Section 12. We are being boarded? By whom? Humans, sir? But they are not soldiers. They appear to be cruise ship passengers." The boarding party was led by a retired teacher named Mary Johnson, who had armed herself with a modified pool cue and a backpack full of art supplies that had been converted into weapons. Behind her came a group of elderly tourists who had turned their vacation gear into assault equipment. The Zephyrian soldiers who tried to stop them were completely confused. They had trained for centuries to fight against advanced alien warriors. They had no idea how to handle an attack by senior citizens. Armed with converted bingo equipment and weaponized shuffleboard sticks. "Surrender your vessel," Mary demanded, pointing her modified pool cue at the nearest alien. "And we promise not to hurt you with our craft supplies." The alien soldier looked at the elderly human woman, then at her companions who were carrying what appeared to be dangerous versions of vacation souvenirs. He had conquered worlds and defeated armies, but he had never faced anything like this. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Vextel finally realized that he had lost. Not just the battle, but his understanding of warfare itself. The humans had not defeated him with superior technology. They defeated him by refusing to fight according to any rules he understood. "High Commander," Captain Jake Morrison's voice came through the communication system one last time. "Your ship is surrounded. Your fleet is disabled. Your soldiers are being overwhelmed by cruise ship passengers armed with vacation equipment. Will you surrender now?" Vextel looked around his bridge at systems that had been disabled by kitchen appliances and weapons that had been defeated by bathroom mirrors. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had conquered species after species by overwhelming them with superior technology. Now they had met a species that did not care about technological superiority. "I surrender," Vextel said quietly. The words felt strange in his mouth. No Zephyrian commander had ever spoken them before. Within hours, news of the victory spread throughout the galaxy. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, conquerors of 47 worlds, had been defeated by a species that turned cruise ships into battleships and fought wars with kitchen equipment. Other alien civilizations listened to the reports. With amazement and fear, the humans had proven something that would change galactic politics forever. They had shown that there was no such thing as a non-weapon when placed in creative hands. Dr. Sam Carter stood in Earth's command center, surrounded by the improvised weapons and modified household items that had saved their world. Admiral White approached him with a smile. "Well, Dr. Carter," she said, "I think we proved your theory." Sam looked around at the chaos of converted civilian equipment that had defeated the galaxy's most powerful military force.